Pranakasha livestream. Hey folks, it's Matt of Pranakasha Productions, and today we are talking with Katie Nicolaou, otherwise known as Meteorologist Katie.
Hello, hello! Thanks for having me!
Oh, I'm glad to have you. Now, I think you're wearing a NASA shirt, right?
I am. I have my NASA meatball shirt on.
Oh, cool. Meatball.
It's one of those great little shirts. I found it at Target like 10 years ago, and I'm still rocking it.
You certainly are.
Well,
now,
thank you.
Speaking of rocking it, now I'm bummed because I can't find it, but you, not too long ago, you put out this really cool weather video that was based on the Orville.
Yes, my Orville Fandom Forecasts.
Yeah, I tried to find it, but I couldn't find it. I ended up finding there was a Star Trek one too, the Star Trek Fandom Forecast.
Yep, as long as you type in Fandom Forecast on YouTube, I pretty much pop up.
Ooh, okay, hold on. I'm going to try and find it. Because then what we can do is I'll watch it right here, but then I'll actually put a better clip of it in the interview. So if I go, okay, so now I'm on YouTube and I go...
Just Orville Fandom Forecast, yeah.
Orville Fandom Forecast. Hopefully I can spell forecast right. F-O-R-E.
That's a tricky one.
Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. 3, 2, 1.
Looking at 27 degrees over in Union Central right now, partly cloudy skies, although if you are planning on heading out for the morning commute, we are seeing some pretty dense air traffic out there. Turbulent air, in fact, over towards Krill, lots of storm activity falling, but right now over towards Delacoste, just some gently falling rain, and some cold rain at that. Those temperatures, only 5 Celsius, just a little bit above freezing. Here's the thing though, the sun could come out tomorrow, and that's not good news on Krill. Hopefully we'll be able to keep some of that cloud cover in place. Looking at Zalea, just a beautiful scene out there. Hardly anyone out on the beaches since it's the off season. Temperatures are a little cool for swimming, but still very pleasant with the sunshine and just a few high up clouds. Now, one place that might not be very pleasant is over towards Mauchlis, the industrial district, covered in that thick smog, visibility problems, as well as air quality alerts. There's actually no end date to the air quality alerts. They're just kind of there perpetually because we have calm winds. There's nothing really to move that smog around, so really an unpleasant and honestly unsafe afternoon on Mauchlis, unless you head up towards the mountains. Thanks to Clyden for sending this picture in. You can see that it's nice once you get into the higher elevations. Just know there is no rain in the forecast, so if you feel precipitation, don't look up, just move upwind. You should be fine because that is not rain. Now, looking at two-dimensional space, I will be honest, I don't have any clue what's happening with the weather there, if they even have weather in two-dimensional space, but as long as you're inside the ship, it should be all right. Now, one more thing about the ship, I will be holding a storm chase on the environmental simulator later on before we get to the science station. Everyone is welcome to join. Hopefully you enjoyed this forecast and have a great day.
And that was that.
Okay, oops, oh, stop, okay. So that was awfully clever.
Well, thank you. I love making them.
Okay, and that came out right. Well, actually, it's pertinent for now because we're still in Orville season 4 hashtag.
There you go.
Orville,
Renew the
hashtag
Orville.
We are Orvillians. Yeah, that's cool. I have a question now. Having watched it just now, I noticed you had a blue dress with sort of a pattern on the top. Was that sort of reminiscent of the Orville as well?
It was, yeah. I have all my wardrobe and such. I was like, well, what would look like the Orville? Because usually I would try to do it in a crew uniform or something, but cosplays get expensive after time. So I was like, all right, let's make it even. I'm a scientist, so I'll wear like science bluish green. And then I saw the neckline cut because I have a couple of dresses that are that shade. And I was like, this one actually, it works. Like in a strange way, it looks like it belongs on the Orville. So and apparently a lot of people agreed.
I mean, it kind of looks a little bit like this. Wait a minute.
Yes, like the pin.
Like that, right?
Yeah, it has the intricate, like the circle or curvature to it.
Yeah. Well, that was a bit of subtle messaging as well.
I tried to add little Easter eggs.
Okay, so but do you also have quote normal weather show as well, or are they all skits? Okay.
No, actually, my entire weather thing, I'm actually a meteorologist. I got the degree, and my job is being a broadcast meteorologist on our CBS station here in Sioux City. So
cool.
it was, it's nice that my coworkers put up with it, but it's been really fun to just interact with viewers in a way that they wouldn't normally just by looking at my weather broadcast in the morning. If I make something for a fandom, you get people who would not watch the news and would not watch the weather who want to tune in and be like, hey, what's going to happen?
So that one, like the Orville fandom one, did that one actually air on the station?
That one did not, but I shared on all of my social, and I have a lot of viewers on Facebook, especially who are from the area, and they saw it and they thought it was so cool. So and it's a win-win because they watch my show and they watch the Orville. So
true. And then you get kickbacks, of course, right?
Oh, heavens no. I wish all I would want is to be on season 4 in some sort of background role capacity. Maybe I could be giving the weather on a monitor or something.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Okay with that.
That would be very cool.
Ooh. I work for free for anyone who's listening on the Orville crew.
Well, we do sort of know various people in our orbits.
There you go.
Yeah. So it could happen.
I would love it.
Yeah, maybe someday I can play my cello on the Orville too. That'd be fun.
Ooh.
And have my lava lamp.
I was wondering. That looks so cool. I haven't had a lava lamp for a while, but I should get another one. I don't trust my cats not to knock it over. Doppler and radar are kind of crazy.
I have 2 lava lamps, one in here and one in our TV room. And the one in our TV room did get knocked over, and it ended up being cloudy for like a week.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So you gotta be careful. Anyway. Yeah. So I also want to know, so your last name is Nicolaou. So is that Romanian or where are you from?
It's part Macedonian and part Greek. It's where my dad's family came from. My grandfather came from Macedonia. My grandmother had relationships with family back in Yugoslavia and the whole Greek region. It's just easier to say that I'm Greek. But yeah, technically it's Macedonian roots.
That's cool. Do you speak any of those languages?
Only the bad words. You learn them when you hang around the coffee shops with all the guys who came from the old country, and they just start talking, and you pick up on a few of them, but you aren't allowed to actually say them, as we found out as children.
Oops. Yeah. Well,
I know a couple.
Like everybody on my dad's side is like German Lutheran, but unfortunately I can't speak German because we didn't have it at our high school. But I know the important words like Scheiße. You know.
Yes. No, and then of course you have my big fat Greek wedding, which has taught some people Greek, like the ekotrarchedia, or just like all the words that you're just looking at the screen, like how did they write this into a script?
Oopsie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I'm part Macedonian Greek, and then I'm also part Scottish. It's a 50-50 mix for me. So I have a very fun temper.
Interesting. Have you been to either of these places, Scotland or Greece, during your life?
I have been to Scotland, yes. I got to go back right before the pandemic, actually, back in 2019. And I got to go see my cousins. I still have one who lives in Perth and one in Dundee, and it was so much fun. And we're hoping my family to eventually take a trip to Greece and Macedonia and go to my grandfather's village and just see what's up and, explore.
Okay. I thought I heard a tiny bit of Scottish in hoping. We're hoping.
Oh, definitely. Oh, it's either that or Southern. I'm a Doctor Who fan. And by watching Peter Capaldi's seasons, I've picked up a little bit of a Scottish accent, depending. So it slips through on occasion.
As a meteorologist, you're actually a scientist then, right?
Yes. I have a 4-year meteorology degree for Bachelor of Science from Valparaiso University. And I'm fully capable of all things weather.
Because there is a certain Scottish YouTuber who technically is an engineer and a software designer, but also I believe has a great degree in physics and seems to know everything about everything, by the name of Scott Manley. You ever heard of him?
I'm not familiar.
Oh, wow. Okay. You have to check him out. He's got jillion. He has over 1 million subscribers and talks about everything.
Wow.
Yeah. He's Scottish.
What was that?
But I think he lives in California or something. Yeah.
How about that? I always want to meet someone who's from Scotland here in the US, because it'd be so just like jarring to hear all of a sudden a Scottish brogue be like, oh, one of my people, hello.
You'd probably dig it. Like if you're into NASA and stuff, do you follow SpaceX at all?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay, well, he does lots of videos on them as well. Basically anything to do with rockets and space, he'll do videos on current events that are happening. So
cool.
Also, even like the SLS and stuff like that, and Boeing Starliner, and
there's always space meteorology. So
there we go.
Interplanetary meteorology.
Okay, well, let me ask you this: up here in Washington State, I live in the Seattle area. We're having difficulty with forest fires at the moment. Like I was just at a wedding on Friday or Saturday, and it was really smoky. And there was actually ash falling out of the sky that was kind of like snow, but it was actually ash from the fires.
Yikes.
So like, what does that do to the weather systems when you start getting that stuff in the atmosphere? Does it affect the weather? Or?
It's fascinating because it can, and in many different ways. I guess the most easy to see way is with the sunrises and sunsets, because with the density of the smoke, it scatters the particles so that the red wavelength is able to make it through mostly, and it gives you that vibrant sunset. And your smoke has actually drifted through my area in Sioux City, Iowa, and it's now over Michigan. That's how long it can linger in the atmosphere and how much it is. But there's also things that you have to take into account with actual like rain and storm systems, because, and we're going to get into the weeds for a second.
Sure. We do this on my show all the time.
I love it.
That's why. Oh, I forgot to ask you, like, how much time do you got?
All the time. All the time.
Because
no worries.
It's typically we go like 60 to 90 minutes.
That
one of my interviews was 3 hours, and we had to cut it short. We were like barely scratching the surface after 3 hours.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, I should probably go to bed around 8 o'clock. So sometime between the next 2 hours.
Okay. Oh, do you have to get up really early for work?
I go to work at 2 a.m.
Oh my God!
It's fine.
Do you actually go to work, or does that mean you set up in your living room?
I do. I go to work. Yep. I start looking at the computer simulations and put together my forecasts and look at the models, and got to do all the hair and makeup and all the fun, lovely stuff before you even see me on television.
Okay. So hair and makeup, that's 2 hours right there, right?
I feel like it used to be 100% because I used to straighten my hair. And then I decided to let it go curly. And that's just my natural curls. It looks like I have a perm. But I roll out of bed, put some refresher on it, good to go. It's the makeup that takes forever now. Exactly. Yeah. I make that exact sound effect too. Just.
Well, I know what you could do. You could just put your makeup on before you go to bed, and then it will be all ready in the morning.
Oh, I wish it worked like that. I have 2 cats who very much like to, if I sleep a little bit longer than normal, or if I press snooze on my alarm one too many times, they'll lick my eyelids open. So
that sounds fun.
Very, very. They'll get a mouthful of makeup if I try that method. Oh yeah, but with the smoke, I don't want to forget that there was a thing called cloud condensation nuclei. Very fancy technical term,
right? But
all it is it's a little particle of dust or dirt or sand or salt or something in the atmosphere that has the water vapor condense around it. It's the core of a raindrop. Right. So microscopic you don't see it, but it's there. And so with the wildfire smoke, you're introducing millions, billions, trillions of, even more than that, tiny little microscopic cloud condensation nuclei. So you can get some heavier rain events if you have moisture in the area. It's just more efficient at creating rainfall.
Okay, and that I remember seeing when I was a kid. You know, they don't talk about it anymore, but like when I was in school, like in high school in the late 70s, early 80s, they would talk about seeding clouds. Like they would go up and they would spread little fine particles of dust to encourage rainfall. Do they still do that?
They're still experimenting with it. But the thing is once you do cloud seeding, if you encourage condensation, you are making it much, much drier up there. And therefore, you're going to make the problem worse, actually, because you're taking away all the extra moisture. Okay. It's going to take a lot to get it to come back. So it's best to just let nature take its course, unless it's exceptionally humid and you're just like, we're just going to get some rain from this. Like in that context, it probably would be okay. But if you are already in a drought and it's not going to get better and you're like, we need rain, let's seed the clouds. Not a good idea, because you're just going to make the problem worse in the long run.
Okay, well, I'll remember that.
Yeah.
In case somebody asks me my opinion on cloud seeding.
There you go.
Okay, so then, well, I'll ask you the question that you always get asked. So why is it called a meteorologist? Like, do you guys have anything to do with meteors?
It's actually, I love that question because it lets me get to talk about Greek and the way that the word meteorologist is derived from Greek, because it's things that fall from the sky, like rain or snow or so on. Meteors also do that. So we just kind of share a base meteo. Okay.
So it just has something to do with the sky and falling out of the sky. Okay.
Exactly.
Well, that's cool.
Although meteorology, I mean, you get stuff that's associated with the sky, but you could also get like ice quakes where it's super cold and then it warms up quickly and it cools down again. And the ground is freezing and contracting and then expanding and contracting so much that it just shudders and rips the earth apart. And you can actually get like similar to earthquakes and you hear this loud boom. It's really freaky.
Whoa, where do they have those? Is this like in the Arctic
United
or something?
States? No, we can get them here.
Ice quakes? Wow, I never heard of that.
They're pretty cool.
So, like, have you ever seen one or heard one in Iowa?
I haven't experienced one personally, but I would really like to someday.
Okay.
Especially, like, we get the polar vortex that descends on occasion. It's usually up near the poles, but when it dips down, we can get some really cold temperatures just because it's so cold, it contracts the ground and just pulls it apart, and it sometimes just shatters almost.
Okay, wow. Okay. All right, now I got a question for you. So as a meteorologist, do you, are you also a climatologist, or is that completely different?
Well, it kind of depends. There are people who go and study climatology and like focus on the atmospheric sciences part of it. Okay. Meteorology, like I took a climatology class. It's part of the requirements to get the degree. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'd say you have... that's more of like a job title if you're studying the climate and such. You're a climatologist. But most people who are climatologists are atmospheric scientists or meteorologists. So it's kind of like the whole square and rectangle thing, where it's like, well, a square is a rectangle, but a rectangle isn't a square, sort of.
Okay, so like as a meteorologist, then have you noticed as a result of global warming, are you seeing changes in the weather patterns that are more than anecdotal?
Yeah, it's interesting because depending on where you look and when you look, there's some interesting things that are wobbling with the weather. For example, we have the ENSO cycle, which is El Nino and La Nina. Different cold water, warm water over South America, the West Coast. Mm-hmm. And that drastically affects our weather and temperatures here in the US. And sometimes those patterns can last just a few years. Sometimes they can last close to a decade. These cycles just are changing in time. So that adds a little bit of natural frustration when it comes to trying to find patterns that aren't necessarily associated with that, but are more on the human side of things. Okay. But in general, like, for example, this hurricane season. What hurricane season? We haven't had one. Yeah, we really haven't
heard much about it, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, right now, I think we have some activity that's starting to fire up, but at the same time, it's way quieter than 2020 when we set the all-time record for a number of storms. And it's kind of going to the extreme sides of nothing or something. And there's a lot of my friends are actually from college. They didn't go into the broadcast path. They decided to go into the research path. Mm-hmm. And they're studying like atmospheric water vapor contents to see if that's increasing and how that could affect temperature and all of it. It's the same as a pot of boiling water. You have to put in a lot of heat to heat up just a little bit of that water vapor. So the more water vapor we have, the more heat it'll take to warm things up, and thus the more time it'll take to cool it down as well.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that's
like I said, you can get into the weeds with this sort of thing.
Yeah. So, and then, I mean, other things that affect weather patterns, like the forest fires we were talking about affect it. And then if some volcano blows somewhere, that can have a big effect.
The one that happened, what island was it on? I think it was like early this year, if not last year. It actually, the dust plume, the ash plume, it caused an overall cooling event in the southern hemisphere, which it's like that happens when you have large amounts of ash put into the atmosphere. It blocks out part of the sun. It can cool things down naturally. Well, naturally as you can get with a volcano.
Right.
But sometimes that affects it too.
And then if the whole southern hemisphere cools, that would affect the wind patterns, right?
Depends. Sometimes it can make the wind stronger if you have a greater temperature difference. Like for us, we have the greatest heating at the equator because that's the spot that gets the most direct sunlight. The poles get the least. And so Mother Nature does not like having extreme temperatures across the globe. So the wind tries to cause those temperatures to mix together and even out.
Right.
Well, in a very glossed over sense.
Right.
But it definitely, if you have more temperature extremes, depending on areas, you can see greater wind.
Right. And then we've got like the rotation of the Earth starts Coriolis effects, and that makes these little whirlpool things happening everywhere.
Done. Not many people I know the Coriolis effect.
Yeah. And then you got oceans that heat differently than land. So that creates all those patterns. And so there's a lot going on. Yeah.
Even the different amounts of snow cover, especially in the winter, the albedo effect, huge difference on temperatures.
Yeah, and then the amount of cloud cover that creates an albedo effect too. So there's all this stuff. Yeah, interesting. That brings up a point, but like, well, now we're back into climatology. But I've seen some things that were saying there were times when the Earth was basically an ice ball where the entire Earth, the oceans are frozen over. I've seen some videos talking about that.
It's interesting. Throughout history, we've had
or not, or
we've had times where you just have incredible cover of ice because of the glaciers. Like for example, Michigan. I'm from Michigan, and the entire state, Battle Creek, where Kellogg's is. So right there.
Wow, because I grew up in Ann Arbor.
No way.
Yeah, until second grade, I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, because my parents went to the U of M.
Nice. My dad went to U of M.
Oh, cool. What year?
I feel like it was 78, I think.
Okay, that's a little bit later than me. Because my parents graduated in the 60s, late 60s. Yeah, wow. Cool. Have you ever been to Frankenmuth?
Right? Yes, oh my gosh. Oh,
I'm going there in a couple weeks. Oh, okay.
Really?
Okay, you're gonna love this. Okay.
Yeah.
My last name is Matt. I'm Matt Weiss. Okay. So my dad's side of the family are all Weisses. They live in Frankenmuth, Michigan. They all speak German as well as English. Though apparently it's a really weird version of German because it sort of became its own dialect over about 100 years. So like when they go back to Germany and speak German, everybody's like, what in the hell did this style? Like, where'd you get that accent?
Michigan adaptation?
Yeah. But anyways, so there's a Weiss farm. It's now called the Weiss Centennial Farm, but that's all my relatives. And it's on Weiss Road in Frankenmuth, Michigan. And at the corner of Weiss Road lives my Aunt Doris, who's like 92 years old, who I'm going to be visiting in October, in about a month, who was one of the very first employees of Brunner's back when it was a tiny little store with like the owner and like two other people.
They only sold like 20 ornaments at the time.
Yeah. And then she became the lead buyer who would go to Germany and buy all the ornaments and bring them back. So she was like, you know, she knew the owner. She was just like at the very top of the heap of Brunner's. Yeah.
That is so cool.
Yeah. And she's still alive, and so I'm gonna go meet her. I've known her ever since I was a kid, but it's been last time I saw her was like 10 years ago, when she came out to visit us in Washington. But yeah, we got the Michigan connection. Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Okay, back to the weather. So we got all these swirly things happening, and then there's different layers of the atmosphere, because then there's this thing called the jet stream, which I don't quite understand what that is. Maybe you can tell us what the jet stream is.
Yes, you have the jet stream, you have the low-level jet, you have the upper-level jet, and basically the way to think about it is it's the dividing line between warm air and cold air. You have different jets. You have the subtropical jet, you have subpolar areas, and for example, this summer, we had heat waves in the United States, tons of heat waves. If you look at the temperatures, and then you look at where the jet stream is, which is that upper-level wind, it was acting as a boundary. And that kind of capped off where the warm air and the cold air was.
Now, when you say upper level, how high are you talking?
We're talking up past like the in the troposphere, up towards the stratosphere area. Sometimes you just get really fast winds up towards 500 millibars, even past that. So really
high. How high is that?
Well, jet stream happens to be where the jets fly. So several thousand.
So 30,000 feet. That's where it is?
And it can vary in height sometimes, depending on what the temperatures are and whatnot. Okay.
All right. Because, I remember watching a Twilight Zone a long time ago where it was an airliner, and it got caught in the jet stream, and it got accelerated to like several thousand miles an hour, and then magically it sent them back in time, and they ended up back in the dinosaur age.
That would be very fun. But the jet stream at most will make you get to your destination a little bit faster. Because for the most part here in like the world that we live on, is that with the troposphere where the jet stream is, where the jets fly, we just can't get those kinds of speeds. As amazing as that would be. I think the most you can hope for is 100, 150 mile an hour if it's really cranking.
Okay. And then what makes the wind so fast up there? What is it? Is the rotation of the Earth or something? Or
one of the main things is the lack of friction. That's the farther up in the atmosphere you go, the higher the elevation above the Earth, the less air particles you have. You lose a lot of that water vapor and a lot of that moisture, and that just stops the drag. Allows that to slow down, and you can get influenced by pressure systems. If you have upper level low pressure, upper level high pressure, and they start to interact, they can kind of act like two spinning wheels. Like what they do for practicing punt returns in football, where they have that machine where you put the football in between and it accelerates it and it shoots it out. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's what can happen with the jet stream too.
Oh, so there's like three areas, and the middle one is the one that's getting kind of accelerated through or something?
Kind of. It's like there's mostly it's just two areas, and then you get the wind that's trapped in between them and it gets pushed off.
Oh, okay. Wow. Okay. That's wild. And we know all this, and they figured all this stuff out, like using weather balloons and stuff like that, or how did they even?
Oh, you got weather balloons, upper level sensing. They have planes, like the hurricane hunters, for example. They just have a maxed out plane that they fly through hurricanes to get data from. Okay. And also, we now have satellites that allow us to identify different layers in the atmosphere of moisture, different locations of it. And in the past 100 years, we've discovered more about meteorology than we have for the past thousands.
Right. Okay. And then for someone like you, are you privy to that kind of data? Like, can you just log into some website and get to it, or how does that work?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have all the weather data. Mostly there's free websites out there like weather.cod.edu. You can look that up. It's College of DuPage. And they have all the computer simulations, and it can get very overwhelming if you don't know how to use it. So most people don't actually go on those. I'd recommend, honestly, if you're an enthusiast and you want to see different layers of the atmosphere and the wind and the water and whatnot, use earth.nullschool, nullschool.net. It is amazing. And it's really pretty because it's all in neon. So if you go up to like 250 millibars, it looks so cool.
Wow. Okay. And then as like a broadcaster meteorologist, is that what you would use to make your predictions, or is it sort of a consensus thing, or how does that work?
Yeah, I use that to visualize it and be like, okay, that's where we're seeing the jet stream right now, or okay, that's where that center of low pressure is. But there's other maps that the National Weather Service puts out, the Storm Prediction Center puts out, and that's why it takes so long in the morning. Our show doesn't start till 5, but I start working at 2. It's because I have to go through all of these maps, and just some of them aren't even maps; they're just numbers with station identifiers, and you got to poke through it. And it's a lot more than just opening up the Weather Channel app and copying what they do.
Okay. But have you ever had to cheat and do a shortcut because you slept in?
Never. No, because regardless, you have to make sure that it goes along with what you said the previous day. And a lot of times with weather apps, they aren't actual people forecasting for you. That's why I like the local weathers, because we're actually forecasting for the area. If you take, say, some national, international weather app, it's going to run off of pure model data without any human interpretation. And that's why humans will never be replaced in meteorology, is because we have to interpret what the models and what the data means.
You have to be able to read the tea leaves.
Exactly. Like if it says that there will be a hurricane in 5 days, and then it goes to absolutely nothing out there, your forecast is going to go from 100 to 0 without any explanation. Versus if you're a human, you can say, okay, that one run with the hurricane, that was wrong. It was an anomaly. It's not happening. So it helps a lot to quell fear.
Okay. So now what I know is where I live, I think my area is notoriously hard to predict the weather because there's a lot of mountains and different weird stuff happening.
Meteorology.
Yeah.
That's a pain in the butt.
But like where you're at, like how far ahead can you accurately predict? How many days would you say?
Usually, if you're talking about knowing that a system's on the way, about 7 days, we'll start to get a sense of if a storm system's headed towards us. If you want to start talking accurate, for example, snowfall forecast, we know that it'll start snowing 7 days in advance, but we'll start to get an idea of how much snow will happen right around, I'd say 2 to 3 days out.
Okay.
It's really finicky. And also you get things like Lake Michigan, where you get lake effect snow, and it all just goes wonky. So sometimes it's just a play it as it happens sort of event.
Okay. So what was this snow you were just talking about? What was it?
Yes.
The Lake Michigan thing?
Oh, lake effect snow.
Lake effect snow? What's that?
Yep. Well, Lake Michigan can get pretty warm in the summer. And because it takes a lot more time for water to cool down than air, because it's good at retaining heat, it actually can keep pretty warm temperatures into the winter. So when below freezing temperatures move over the lake, you get a lot of evaporation because the lake's still warm. That supercharges the atmosphere with moisture. And then when it moves off of the lake onto the land's way colder, so everything just freezes up and you get a ton of snow. You can get hundreds of inches from lake effect.
Oh, okay. Because I think I remember that. I saw some show about that at some point.
It's one of my favorite weather phenomena. Next to tornadoes, I love lake effect snow.
Okay. Is there such a thing as a snow-nado?
There can be. Theoretically, we actually had one. Oh, that was a pain. Last winter, December 2021.
Okay.
We had, there we go. We had the greatest tornado outbreak in Iowa history.
Okay.
And that happened in December after we had snowfall. So there was a tornado on the ground with piles of snow around it.
So that was a snow-nado.
Yeah, it could theoretically have picked up some snow. But usually it's difficult because you'd have to have at least some kind of warm air to get it to rise, the air to rise, and then you have the cold air sink, and you have to have a lot of wind shear. And there's energy that goes into it. So wintertime tornadoes just don't happen a lot in snowy areas.
Okay.
But they can happen in the South. Like February, for some reason, we get a surge of tornadoes.
Okay. Because I know there really is such a thing as like a fishnado.
Fishnado, frognado, squidnado, jellyfishnado.
Jellyfishnado. Ooh, that sounds.
TikTok on it.
Jellyfishnado sounds particularly horrifying.
Oh yeah, no. If you get any kind of tornado or water spout, and it can go over a swamp or the ocean, you get into a pod of jellyfish near the surface, it could get sucked up. Now, Sharknado. I always get asked about Sharknado.
There. Yeah.
I always know where that conversation's going.
Yeah.
probably can't happen because sharks are smart and they can actually sense when the pressure drops, because tornadoes are areas of extreme low pressure. And so they just head to deeper water. And so a tornado with sharks inside of it, very, very unlikely.
Okay, so that probably means there's not much chance of having a dolphin-nado either.
No, those dudes are smart.
Okay.
It's just
the jellyfish. The jellyfish are a little lower IQ, so.
Exactly. They just kind of, and they're very, very slow. So if they can't swim away fast. So.
Okay. Then that means there probably also are like locust nados, like
you
grasshoppers.
You can pick them up. Yeah, cownados. There's actually
cownados. Ooh, I've never seen a cownado.
Yeah, Oklahoma or Kansas. I can't remember which area it was. There was a report of a herd of cattle that was picked up by a tornado and deposited in the field next to it that survived, mostly. But yeah, it can pick up horses and cows and chickens, and it can get messy. Like if it hit a hog farm.
Oh, a hognado. Yeah, that would be tough.
So Twister wasn't too far off in their depiction of that.
What about a catnado?
If it hit a humane society, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Hopefully they'd land on their feet.
Yeah, they probably would. Oh boy, yeah.
Actually, I have a piece of art. I wish I had it here, but I think I've packed it away. And it's a tornado full of cats. And I found it at a Comic-Con for no apparent reason. It was just there. I bought 3 copies of it. I thought it was amazing.
That would be good. Okay. Well, okay, this is getting kind of crazy. So how about like when you guys are predicting the weather, do you guys ever like place bets on who's getting it right? Like competing stations or anything? Do you guys like meet at the bar afterwards and like, okay, I owe you $5 on that one? Or
I love that. Yeah, sometimes you do if you have really good camaraderie. And I have a friend who worked at the competing station. We're actually like 1 and 2 in the market. So very, very much rivals, but we would always joke around and be like, how much snow do you think we're going to get? Like if we had competing forecasts, we'd wait and see who was most right. And actually there's these things called forecasting challenges, and meteorologists can buy into it, and it goes for a couple months and you compete against other meteorologists for bragging rights, and you forecast for different spots all around the world and you try to get it the most correct.
So it's kind of like fantasy football type of a thing?
Exactly. Except you have to forecast and go through all these numbers and kind of scratch your head and hope for the best.
Okay.
But it's really cool. I believe at one time in college, someone pointed out that there was a gambling site where you could bet on the high temperature for the day and like the weather across the region or something. I never tried it, but it's a good idea in
that can be fun.
Theory.
All right. Another question. You, of course, are aware of the Farmers Almanac, right?
Yes.
So does that have a lot of scientific basis, or is that mostly just wives' tales?
It's really bad at forecasting the weather. And the reason why is because it's based on climatology. And climatology and weather...
Climatologists again, darn them.
Exactly. Well, it's a good example, because weather is a part of climatology, but climatology isn't necessarily affecting the weather necessarily. So the way to think of it is the weather is day to day. For me, it's the middle of September in Iowa. Our temperature should be in the 70s. It got to 90 today and we have thunderstorms. So it goes against what climatology tells us should be happening. The average temperature is a 30-year average. That's climate. Climate is 30 years of weather data for a specific date. Okay. And so climate, the way I like to see it is if you were to move to Florida, you won't need snow boots, because throughout history, climatologically, they don't get snow, especially down towards the far southern tip. But the weather could change and it could be in the 40s. You just never know.
All right. Because back to the wedding that I was at on Saturday, it was an outdoor wedding, right? Yeah. So they're like, okay, we're pretty sure it's not going to rain because based on the date we have, so like I guess it's a climatologist again, which is going to say, if you schedule your wedding on, August, first week of August, it's almost guaranteed it's going to be sunny. Like, is that reliable over the long haul?
Not at all. It might make you feel better while planning, but the thing is the atmosphere, it's chaos. It can create rain any day of the year, any day of the week, and it really doesn't listen. There's better odds, say, like you have a 1 in 10 chance of seeing storms if you have a wedding in June versus a 1 in 30 chance later on in the fall, which those numbers are made up if anyone was thinking of it. But still, that odd of one can pop up at any time.
Okay.
So just depends on your luck.
Okay. Now circling back to the Orville and then swooshing over to Star Trek. Suppose we have like an ion storm. What would that do?
Well, we get some very interesting Aurora Borealis because we get so much interaction right now. The solar activity has really gone up compared to years past. So we've had phenomenal aurora activity in Northern Lights.
And dang it, I've never seen it. I want to see the Northern Lights with my own eyes someday before I die.
Exactly. Like,
you've
once
seen it, right? Have you seen it?
Nope.
Oh.
I really want to see it. And I'm hoping, someday we'll be able to forecast it a few days in advance reliably so I can buy a plane ticket, go up to Canada and watch.
All right. If you find out, call me, hook me up, DM me, and I'll meet you up there.
Works for me.
I'm getting old. If I don't do it soon, I'll be dead before I see it. I've only got a couple decades left now.
With all this activity, there's a pretty good chance. So where are you located?
I'm located about 30 minutes. Well, okay. Do you want, 30 minutes north of Seattle.
Oh, nice. So you would have a chance.
Of course, that depends on how fast you drive, of course. But
fair point.
But supposedly I should be able to see them from here on a good day, but I've never ever seen it.
Oh, so, well, hopefully you'll get a chance here eventually.
Yeah. Partly because Seattle tends to be overcast a lot, so if it happens to be a lot of cloud cover, then forget it.
And on top of it, you have the lights of the city, which pollute the sky, so that makes it difficult to see.
And then all those Starlink satellites everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
I can't see anything anymore.
That's why I love it out here. Iowa, Nebraska, South Dakota, there's nothing.
Yeah. Slight tangent. So I'm assuming you can see the Milky Way at night with your own eyes.
Yeah.
Can you also see Andromeda?
I've never tried, actually. I've never been too good at stellar cartography and knowing where things are. So I just look up and I go, that's a lot more stars than over there. Hi, Milky Way.
Yeah. Because I didn't know this, but apparently Andromeda is quite large in the sky if you know what to look at. It's just you have to, basically take a picture and let it expose for quite a long time for it to really show.
Yeah.
But if you do know what you're looking at, you can actually see it. And it's like quite a bit bigger than the moon. I think it's
very cool.
4 to 8 times the diameter of the moon. And that's a nearby galaxy.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, I love space and all things space. So
I noticed that you have a very space background there.
Yes, the Witch's Broom Nebula. It's my favorite because it's pink and blue. And I like those two colors.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Witch's Brew.
You can like science and also just like something because it's pretty.
Witch's Brew. Were you a witch in a past life?
I wish. I call myself the Weather Witch because I love Halloween. Halloween is just so much fun for me because it's everyone else cosplays for one day. And I can cosplay without being judged in public. So I really do enjoy Halloween.
Speaking of cosplay, the whole reason why we are having you on the show today is because I ran into you at Star Trek Las Vegas.
Yes, remember? That was so much fun at Melissa's table.
Yep, right over by seventh rule. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay.
Oh, love all that stuff. The walking out by Melissa. I saw a lot of people wearing the shirts, which made me happy.
Yeah, I was wearing one of her shirts. Yes. I had her Uhura one.
That one I saw all over the place.
Yeah. And then right next to them was Kavita Maharaja, who's a wonderful artist. She's done all that Star Trek art. And it was so funny because I knew her stuff and I'd seen her on Twitter and I'd seen her on Facebook, So I knew exactly who she was, but I walked by her table the whole time. And it wasn't until Sunday when I realized, wait a minute, I know who you are.
Yeah. I had the same thing with that person who was selling the chain mail near the autograph booth. I followed them on TikTok. I followed them for years. And they have a British accent on TikTok. And then I walked up in person. It was American. And then they're like, oh, yes, I'm on TikTok. I talk with the British accent there. But now this is me in real life. I was like, it's you.
No, you've ruined my whole view of you.
Exactly.
Okay, speaking of that, I'm still smarting from Anson Mount because he showed up in the vendor room wearing this like fancy suit jacket, you know? And I'm like, dude, where's your leather jacket and t-shirt? I mean, everybody else here is like dressed down and you're trying to be all fancy. What happened to you, man? Then I found out he sold, did you know he sold his chicken coop?
No.
He did. And he gave the chickens to his friend. In fact, he moved from Montana to Connecticut.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I would not give up Montana. That is a nice place. Way cheaper cost of living, too.
So, I mean, he's like totally, I mean, the guy sold out to Starfleet completely. You know?
Well, I'd say the thing was, I sat and I watched him sign things. We were in that long line that wrapped all the way around the hall. Mm-hmm. And then he just got up and left. And they didn't tell us that he was done or leaving or anything. And we wasted 65 minutes.
And he didn't do selfies either. Oh, I'm so angry.
I think probably at other conventions, it'll probably be a little bit more organized. And that hopefully he'll be able to do that in the future.
Well, Ethan Peck did selfies.
So
Ethan
nice.
Peck was wearing a t-shirt.
A Spock shirt.
Yeah. And
highly illogical.
And he was quite charming.
He was.
So there.
He's such a nice soul.
He is.
And the fact that he's a nerd too. Like he likes the show. And that's what makes Strange New Worlds so different for me is you're getting people who grew up watching Star Trek, who have seen Star Trek, and they know how important it is. And it goes to show that is important for a show.
It is important.
Take Doctor Who, for example. You had David Tennant grew up saying he was going to be an actor to become the Doctor. He did it. One of the best darn doctors out there.
Yeah, he's one
Peter
of my
Capaldi.
favorites. Yeah.
Exactly. You get these people who are so dedicated to the show, they will make sure it's a good product.
They just exude it, right?
I love it. They do. Yeah. That's why I'm hoping one day I'll be in Starfleet on TV.
Speaking of exuding stuff, did you happen to get a selfie with Doug Jones?
No, but he looked like he was having fun.
Okay, I got to tell this. I was walking by, right? And it was Doug Jones was another one of those guys in the vendor room that had a line a mile long. You know, everybody wanted his autograph. And I walked by and he was sitting there hugging and kissing somebody at the front. So I'm like, I want some of that. So I came back the next day and I was like, can you like hug and kiss me like you did that other person? He's like, sure. And then I have all these selfies of him just like all over me. Because he does that. Amazing. He's not. The guy's crazy. Because he's just like, I love everyone, you know, and I don't care.
Exactly.
So
positive vibes here, there, everywhere.
Yeah. So, yeah.
See, I love it when they have fun at cons too.
Yeah.
Like, you can kind of tell some of the people who are there because they're like, all right, yeah, they told me I should come to conventions to promote the show. And then you have people who are actually like Garrett Wong. Oh my gosh, that man belongs and like he needs to be protected because he's such a good advocate for fans. Yeah. I love him.
Yep, he was there.
He stopped me to take a picture of my cosplay.
Oh, great.
Yep, when I had my Janeway Macrocosm cosplay, I was walking through the vendor's room before it opened because I was going back to the 7th rule table. And he goes, oh my God. And as I walked past, he goes, can I take a picture of you? I was like, yes.
Taking a picture of me? Woo.
Can I get one with you? But it was really cool. And then he followed me on Twitter because of it.
Wow. So, yeah. Well, this year especially, there were so many people in the vendor room.
That was over fire capacity, I will tell you that.
I spent 95% of my time in there. Like I missed all the talks and all the other stuff. The only thing I saw that wasn't in the vendor room was Robert Picardo's Broadway show thing, where he and a friend of his sang and did a comedy gala routine. Yeah, that was it. Every single other thing I missed because I was in the vendor room, and I was like, I don't mind. I'll just watch those on YouTube.
There you go.
But in the vendor room, it's just like so many actors had tables, you know. And the cool thing about it this year was when you did have those giant long lines because of a couple of the superstar ones, then everybody else's table was like deserted. So you could just walk up there and talk to them, you know, and they're glad to see you because they don't have any fans at that moment.
It's so bad. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's okay. I'll talk to you.
Here, I'll talk to you. I'll buy an autograph.
Yeah. Plus, like, if there isn't a line, you get to talk to them for a while, which is nice.
That's what's so great about it. And like, also, I mean, I figured out also, you can kind of lurk at somebody's table as long as you get out of the way so they can keep signing other people's autographs. You can sort of sit there on the side and kind of observe the interactions, you know, and that's really fun to do, I think. So
absolutely.
Yeah. That was a blast. And there were so many people there. Also, Andrew Robinson was there. Did you get to talk to him?
Yes. Oh, I didn't get to talk to him, but he looked like he was having an interesting time. He had all these people he was going through and signing. And,
you know, he's 80 years old. Did you know that?
Yeah. He looks younger.
Yeah, he looks
I was
younger.
surprised.
Yeah, he's still just as sharp as ever. And
oh, yes. Yeah. Very witty.
Oh, yeah. Smart. Well, he's a professor, I think, at USC or something like that. Yeah, he's got an acting class. Yeah. So you can get him talking about that stuff. And then who else? Who else for the real? Well, Jonathan Frakes was there for a bit. Yeah. And all kinds of actors.
They had over 130 of them. Some of them more obscure than others, but
yeah. And then, well, Tawny Newsome from
I got to meet her, and that was awesome.
Me too. Yeah, she's cool. She's really cool. And also Michelle Hurd.
Yes.
I finally stupidly, everybody was talking about Michelle Hurd, and I'm like, who's that? I don't know who that is. And then I was walking by her table. I'm like, oh, that's Rafi's got a table. Okay, I know that voice. Rafi. And then I'm like, shoot, that's who Michelle Hurd is. Oh, so I got right when they were practically tearing it down. It was like the end of the day on Sunday. Right at the last second, I got some autographs with her and a really good selfie. Oh, so she's great. I love her too.
Fun.
Yeah,
she seems so sweet.
She is. She is really sweet. She's another one of those. Kind of like Doug Jones, where she's just super open-hearted, you know, and so good with the fans, you know. So, and I think she's pretty new at it, isn't she? She must be, because Picard hasn't been on that one. So some of them, so I kind of realized, you know, some of the actors, it's almost like the vendor room is kind of like their trial by fire.
Yes.
Where they can find out how good they are with just rapping with the fans or not. Like, you know.
Well, and that and the moderated panels I found were really good for determining if they're comfortable at cons or not.
Oh, okay.
And Anson Mount was probably the peak of that because we had one of the moderators for the Strange New Worlds podcast or Strange New Worlds panel was just talking to each of the individual people about things that weren't really Star Trek, that kind of were just random, and all of us in the audience were just like, what is this? And there were huge lines to ask them questions. And they were getting down to about 5 minutes left in the panel, and they were still just talking about like random things. And Anson, he turns to the moderator, he goes, how about we get some questions from the audience? And I'm like, you know what these cons are about, sir. Thank you. And it's like, you can see he's starting to pick up on it. Now he's been to more and more conventions of, this is the norm. This is what we do. And that, I think that moment sold me on him, was that he was very aware of what was happening. I'm like, okay, you're going to do more cons. I hope he does.
Well, you know, what was funny is when I got his autograph, I launched into this whole thing about like, my wife wants me to get this autograph. Like when she saw Strange New World, she's like, ooh, I like the captain. He's hot. And I was like, "Hun, it's an ensemble show. You can't just focus on one character."
She's like, watch me.
And I was like, and also nobody can whisk eggs like that. Those were CGI eggs, you know, it was obvious. So he's looking at me like, who is this guy? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Like he still hasn't had quite as many seasoned fan interactions.
Right. So he's trying to figure out if I'm bullshitting him or if I'm for real or what, you know? And then finally, and I was trying to get him to like, of course, every single one of the Star Trek actors, I do a pitch for my show and try to get him to do an interview like this, you know. So I was trying to get him to do it, and that's where he's like, "Well, you got to talk to Paramount to set those things up." And I'm like, "Dude, that'll never happen if I go through them. Why don't we just talk about the chickens in your chicken coop or whatever? It won't be even Star Trek." And they just go, "Well, I gave the chickens to our neighbors." I'm like, "What? You gave away the chickens?" So at that point, he's kind of trying to get me out of there. So finally, I give him my card. I gave him, where is it? My Pranakasha Productions card. I probably gave you one of these.
Yes.
And then he's like, no, actually, he gave me his card. He goes, "Here, just take this." And then I'm like, "Oh, we're exchanging cards. Okay, here's my card."
Yeah.
And then I thought he was totally blowing me off. Then I went back to my room. And the card he gave me was Anson Mount, producer, host of his podcast called The Well.
Oh.
And it had his email on it. And I'm like, oh, maybe he didn't blow me off, you know?
That's cool.
So I listened to the podcast. It's actually really cool. You know, they talk about just creative stuff and the creative process, and it's really interesting. So I mean, so I'm totally giving him shit right now, you know, but it's all, the thing is, the reason why I'm doing it, I'll probably keep doing it every time I see him, is I'm just kind of poking at him to trying to get him to kind of come back at me, you know?
You're being an antagonizer.
Of course, well, that's what I do. So anyway, because I'm sure he could do it, you know, especially like this thing about the suit jacket they had. I mean, he had a suit jacket with a little Star Trek pin on it. And of course he had jeans but he didn't have cowboy boots. I was expecting cowboy boots from somebody in Montana, you know. But anyways.
He's got to accessorize at least with the Delta Shield.
He had the Delta Shield at least. So,
there you go.
Anyway. So the convention, that was such a blast. But you know what I found out? There's going to be a Star Trek convention in Seattle. Star Trek Mission Seattle.
I've seen murmurs of it, but there's been no information released.
I hear people talking about it, and then I even found out who's doing it. And I've seen dates, but I was like...
It's creation events, right?
You know, it's not creation. It's because creation isn't... What I've heard is creation isn't officially licensed.
Yeah, they had their license taken out.
So the official licensed thing is going to be in Seattle by some other group. I forgot what it's called. It's anyways.
Reed Pop, maybe?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Reed Pop does a lot.
Reed Pop. So I was like, okay, I want to get a table for that because I can, you know, for one thing, I could bring my cello because I don't have to bring it on a plane. So I can cosplay around with Captain Hardinger carrying his cello everywhere like he does in my show, you know, and then play it, you know, and that would be my kind of pull. Ooh. So, but...
Oh my, there's a thunderstorm outside.
Oh, I didn't even...
I just heard thunder for a second. I was like, either my cats just broke something or something just hit.
Okay, well, if you suddenly cut out, we'll know what happened.
The power
thunderstorms bring... different nados, you know, depending on
gust nados, land spouts, actual tornadoes.
Land spouts. What are land spouts?
Land spouts are tornadoes that are not associated with the mesocyclone of a thunderstorm. So basically, it's not with a wall cloud.
So it's kind of like an overblown twister, dust devil?
Kind of, yeah. It's still rotating. It's just not associated with the main area of the storm. It's kind of off to the side.
Oh, so a little fringe, little finger thingy.
Yeah, and usually they're quite a bit weaker than actual, like, full-blown tornadoes, but they're still spinny.
Do you know anything about weather on Mars?
Vaguely. I know that they have weather. Like you also have, what was it? Uranus that has diamond rain or something like that. And interplanetary meteorology is fascinating to me. I just need to get the time to actually study it.
Okay. Well, it seems like it would be, I mean, in Mars, since there's no oceans, it seems like it would be more homogeneous, right?
You'd think, although it depends, like, you have the poles that have ice on them and the main areas that are hot as heck. And it's like, that would create some very interesting wind dynamics.
I know they have dust devils. They have lots of dust devils on Mars. Because there's lots of pictures
all
of
the
them.
dust storms.
Well, so there's storms, but there's also actual dust devils. There's lots of pictures of them.
They just whirl on up.
Yeah, and it's weird because the atmosphere is super thin. It's like 100 times thinner than on Earth. So you wouldn't think
takes
it would
a lot
have
more
much.
to get going.
Yeah, that's when you saw The Martian, right?
Yes, I have. That's with the dude who he gets left on the planet.
Matt Damon.
I've seen it once.
Yeah.
Matt Damon, that's who it is.
But okay, shoot, we need to credit the author and darn it all. Andy Weir.
Okay.
Andy Weir. Now, he admitted there was one major plot hole in that whole story.
Really?
And that is the beginning of the story happens because there's this giant dust storm that causes them to have to leave the planet, and then he gets impaled by this antenna.
Yeah.
And miraculously survives. Now, the plot hole is that the atmosphere of Mars is way too thin to be able to, no matter how fast the wind's blowing, it wouldn't have enough inertia to actually do any of that stuff.
Yeah, probably not quite as severe a storm.
Yeah, like, I mean, even if it was 200-mile-an-hour wind, that would be basically like a 2-mile-an-hour wind on the Earth because the atmosphere is only 1/100th of the mass. So
it would feel weird.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah. With a lack of atmosphere, that'd be freaky.
Yeah, so it wouldn't really be able to do that. That's the one major plot point. Otherwise, everything else in the movie was held up scientifically, except at the time that the book was written, they didn't know that there was so much ice, water ice, in typical Martian soil. So in the book, he had to figure out a different way to extract water out of the air. And then now he says, in reality, you could just, all you'd have to do is heat up the soil and then water vapor would come out of it because there's so much ice in it. Cool. So that was another thing, but he had no idea that that was the case when he wrote the book. Anyway.
How about that?
Yeah. Interesting stuff. Yeah. Wow. So what do you do on your free time when you don't have to think about meteorology?
I chase tornadoes for fun.
You're a tornado chaser too.
Yes, I do it. I do it so that I can get be a resource in the field for other meteorologists like the National Weather Service and be a spotter, so I can confirm ground truth of what we're seeing. Okay. And also as a way to inform the public, because it's well documented that if people will be more likely to take shelter if there's actually a threat that they can see. You can say, we have a tornado warning for Cass County. You're like, okay, yeah, we get those every summer, and I've never been hit by a tornado. I'm just going to stay and continue cooking my dinner. But if you have video proof and you're streaming it like, all right, this is meteorologist Katie Nicolaou in the field. There's a tornado. There's Bob's Barbershop. You live 2 blocks down the road. Get in your basement. They'll get in their basement.
Okay, so that's a good point.
That's one of my things that I like to do on my time off is go and do storm spotting and, verify, get some numbers for the National Weather Service and such.
Now,
and then go for it.
Is this all by yourself or do you have a team of people that go with you?
It depends. Sometimes I just go by myself because it depends on, time of day. There's not many meteorologists out there who can also join you who aren't working on a different shift. But sometimes I go with research groups and I'd go with my college. When I was in college, we would go out on convective field studies. And sometimes I just take my family.
Have you ever done that thing where you have this thing full of all these drone or little feathered things that you escape into the tornado?
From Twister? The Dorothy machine? Yeah. I wish. No, I do not have any tech like that.
Is that
there
a
are
real
researchers. Thing? There are people like Tim Samaras, rest his soul. He was a storm chaser and he was into engineering, and he created this tornado turtle probe. And basically it was a little, very tiny cone, a very flat cone. And he would put in the path of a tornado, and the tornado would pick it up and, well, not pick it up, but it'd go over it. And the cameras inside and the sensors inside could measure barometric pressure drops and temperature, and you could see inside a tornado.
Okay. So that thing in that movie where it actually let go these tiny little sensors that flew around, that's not real?
It's not real, but I wouldn't be surprised if someone tried to make it. Because there are ways the government tried to shoot sensors, or not the government, I think it was a research group, but they tried to shoot rockets with sensors on them into tornadoes. But it was too puny and the wind field was too strong. It just kind of and flew away from it. So they haven't tried many other projects like that.
Okay.
You can fly drones into tornadoes, though, and some people are trying to fly planes through tornadoes, and
I heard
there's
of that.
a lot to do.
Okay. Interesting. And then have you ever gotten into a situation where you're like, oh crap, I'm just about to get sucked into this tornado for real?
You know, I've been into tornadoes. One when I was little that got me interested in the weather, and then the other one when I was in high school. And they're both in Michigan, which were really close to my hometown of Battle Creek. And I was just like, yeah, if we get 2 tornadoes within a decade, I think it's pretty much meant to be that I have to study them. And so got to do that. And I think the only time that I really was in a situation where I was like, I need to get out of here was in Lawrence, Kansas in 2019. They had an EF4 tornado that just blew up, and it was massive. And we were at an intersection and the light would not turn green. We were sitting there for a couple minutes and it was just a red light. Okay. And the tornado was moving fast. We were like, we might have to take a different turn here, guys, because we can't get this light to turn. And then finally it did. And so we went through and we were safe.
And you didn't just run the red light? I would have just said, screw this light and gone right through.
If you're going to storm chase, you have to obey the traffic laws. I am a stickler for that one.
Ooh. Okay.
I always say if you have to break the law to get a good tornado shot, you aren't good enough to do it. So like if you aren't catching it, someone else is. It's fine. You'll get the next one when you're in a better position.
Seems like they should have wrote a little caveat in the law about traffic lights that says, in the case of tornadoes, you're allowed to use your best judgment as to whether you need to obey this traffic sign or not.
Well, some storm chasers high on their own self do break the rules when they're driving and storm chasing live and streaming it. And we had a notorious example of that here with the Winterset tornado in Iowa. And one chaser, who most meteorologists is a thorn in their side, completely ran off a road. It was a T-sided road with a stop sign, and he just went straight across into a field because he wasn't paying attention and blew through stop signs, was speeding through a tiny little Iowa town, and all live streamed it. So
Did he receive a ticket in the mail?
He did, because myself and other meteorologists who are in the area sent it to the state police.
Got you.
Exactly. So yeah, for any storm chasers who happen to be watching this, just know if you're streaming your bad behavior, we're going to send it to the cops.
Yeah.
Because the whole reason I'm a broadcast meteorologist is to help protect people. And whether that be from weather or people who are enthusiastic about the weather. I don't care as long as I'm helping keep people safe.
That particular storm chaser needs to get himself a Model 3 or a Model Y that has the latest FSD, and then it can drive itself, and then he can just...
There you go. See, honestly...
As long as he wiggles the steering wheel every 30 seconds.
There you go. No, get a self-driving car. That might be a good option, honestly, for some of these people.
They're almost there. It's coming soon.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although you imagine a flying car with storms, and you're just like, I don't think that would work.
All right. We're hitting. Okay, so now we're going all over the place. So maybe I should wrap it up so that you have time to go to bed.
True, yeah. Although I will say it's quite on brand for me because my YouTube is so many random fandoms because I can't decide on one thing to talk about. So
okay, wait, random fandom. So we have the Orville, we have Star Trek. Is there any other random fandoms you've done? Have you done a Doctor Who one?
I did a Doctor Who fandom forecast in full cosplay of the 13th Doctor. I want to do another one in the 12th Doctor cosplay because I made one from the The Witch's Apprentice. Or The Magician's Apprentice, that was it.
Okay.
When he goes into medieval times with his guitar on a tank and just has fun. I want to do a weather forecast with that.
Okay.
Yes.
I know a guy who is doing a Doctor Who fan series. It's actually pretty good.
Really?
He lives in the UK. But like, would you be interested in being an actor in such a thing?
Yes. Yes, 100%. Oh, dude, that'd be amazing. Thank you. Yeah, because when I was in college, I wanted to get experience on set in case, I wanted to change out of broadcast meteorology, maybe go into acting. And I was on all the Chicago shows, the Chicago Med, Fire, PD, and Justice when it was still there in the background, which was fun. And ever since then, I've had this little bug in the back of my head that's like, you want to be on set, you want to do some acting, but there's not necessarily sets out in Iowa. So I do voice acting instead. And
oh, really?
Yeah. Got an IMDb page because of it for some reason.
Okay, are you a SAG actor?
Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
I would love to be, though.
Okay, well, just a second before you sign up for that.
Yeah.
I also have a fan series that I'm also always looking for guest stars and so on. And actually, voice actors, I have very few female voice actors. So that could be possible. Okay.
You just let me know. I got my setup and I have a little sound booth I can put up, too.
The beauty of my show is it's exclusively green screens, so you don't have to be in Seattle. I mean, we could just do a Zoom call with a green screen behind you, and you could...
Works for me.
Yeah. And it comes out surprisingly good because I figured out how to do it.
Heck yeah!
It takes a hell of a lot of time. I mean, my current episode is like a year in production for a 40-minute show. But
that's still awesome, though.
So, can you, like, as a voice actor, can you do different accents or different types of voices, or?
Well, I have a bit of Scottish accent that I like to talk about when I'm talking with my Scottish friends. Okay. But I also do my regular voice. I can do a little kid voice, but I have to warm up with it a little bit. The key is to actually do it in the very front of your mouth and make your mouth small because little kids have smaller voices and smaller mouths. So it kind of works a little bit like that. But I am not warmed up, so it sounds really nasally. But yeah. I got the Scottish, I've got the American, I've got a little bit of a Southern accent. I'd say it's like Oklahoma Southern. But yeah, working on that range.
I've been looking for somebody who can do a really good Uhura, but I think I found that person.
Ooh, very cool.
Because my show is all the original series stuff.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then what it is I take clips from the original series, and then I green screening other actors, and then I also throw in little comic books stills sometimes when I need the actors to say something that they never say. Like if I need Scotty to say something that I can't find a clip of, I'll just show a comic book thing of Scotty, and then I'll have my voice actor who's really good at Scotty imitations do a Scotty, and it works really well. So yeah, it's fun.
Awesome.
Okay. All right. Now you're on my list. Woo.
Sweet.
Okay, very cool. Wow. Okay, so we're trying to wrap it up, but yeah, now we're doing new tangent.
Yay!
Which also kind of happens. But yeah. So Iowa, is that anywhere near Oklahoma?
We're a ways away from it.
Okay.
Pretty decent chunk of time, but it's still close enough I could chase if I wanted to.
Wait, Ohio, I'm trying to remember. So you're Iowa. Where is Iowa? It's somewhere in the Midwest.
It's left of Illinois.
Okay.
We're right underneath Minnesota.
Okay. Oh,
and
yeah.
Corner to Wisconsin.
So that is kind of near Oklahoma, isn't it?
It's kind of. Kansas separates us.
Oh, yeah, Kansas.
And Missouri.
Oh, well.
It's still fun, though.
That's true. Okay. Well, all right, let's wrap it up. So, any parting shots? Okay, you have a YouTube channel, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, so we're putting a link to that. And then do you also just have a Katie, the meteorologist website?
Honestly, my main things are on social media. I'm at weather_Katie on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And that's where people mostly just interact with me.
Okay, we'll put all that stuff down there. And
Sweet.
Then, and you have an IMDb page, so I can probably copy and paste a bunch of stuff to create a bio for you, right? Too, or if you have one, you can send it to me.
If you need anything, Yeah, just let me know what you need me to fill in the holes for, and I can gladly do that.
Okay, yeah. So I'm going to put links, bios, and other things all about Katie down here. And then I'll find things that we can put up above us. I'm sure there's tons of things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we can find. And that's it.
Totally. Yeah, feel free to use anything I have on my social.
Okay. And I invite you to come to Mission Seattle, Star Trek Mission Seattle, once we all figure out how to sign up for it. And hopefully I'll have a Pranakasha Productions table there. That's my goal. So cool. But if not, I for sure I'm going to be dressed up as Captain Hardinger, carrying my cello around.
Awesome.
In character. And but he's a bit of he's a little bit nuts, and he's kind of gruff. Right. So watch out. He's not as nice as I am. I mean, I'm all nice and warm and friendly and full of love. Captain Hardinger, not so much. He's like a little more. Aww. He's been through the Battle of Axanar, and things have happened to him. And plus, I mean, he's on the Enterprise filling in for Captain Kirk, and the whole crew hates him, and he knows it. So he's all alone. His only friend is his lava lamp and his Horta named Juliet. And
there you go.
And his hologram, personal hologram, his EEH, which is the emergency esthetician hologram.
Very nice.
Who gives him advice on, hairstyles and so on.
Hey, I mean, if it works, right?
It does. And so he's got Dominica, Juliet, and his lava lamp. Other than that, he's got no friends.
Aww.
So far.
Sounds like Iowa.
No, actually, he does have a friend, Captain J.T. Powell of the Starship Egotastica, played by none other than J.P. Justin Poole. Do you know J.P.?
Wow. I know of him. Yeah.
Yeah. He's the co-star of the show.
Cool.
Yeah. This guy right here.
Yes. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's it's actually super fun, and I'm working on episode 4, but like I said, I mean, since the entire thing is green screens, literally the entire thing is special effects from beginning to end, so it takes forever to do an episode. There's so much work that goes into it. Like, I mean, right here, I've got an hour and a half show, that took us an hour and a half, plus maybe it'll take me an hour to edit it, maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas my 40-minute Star Trek show, it takes me an entire year to put it all together.
Nice.
And this will probably get as many views as that does. So.
Oh, well. Awesome. But well, anyway. I mean, I'm sure it just has to hit the algorithm the right way, and you never know it'll take off.
Oh, dang that algorithm. I mean, why can't they just tell us what it wants so we can do it instead of trying to do all this black magic to try and figure out what the algorithm wants? I wish they would do that for this once, pull back the curtain and let us see the squirrels flipping their gears.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay, Katie. Well, it's been so fun. Very good to talk to you. And then, so do you do a lot of conventions?
I try to. It's a little tricky around here because we don't have many in Iowa, but I typically have been to Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, gone to GalaxyCon in Minneapolis, and then I always try to do C2E2 in Chicago. That is my big con that I love to go to.
Okay.
So, yeah, and hopefully I'm going to add more in the future. It's just a matter of getting the funds to be able to attend them.
That's true.
Yeah, believe it or not, broadcast meteorology does not pay well.
Well, I mean, I know actors who have lots of gigs, and are on lots of different TV shows, and they're not making that much money either. A lot of them have to have side gigs too to pay the bills.
Walmart and Chick-fil-A pay better than beginning meteorology.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy. Like airlines pilots. Those guys, the guys that do those hops, the turboprops.
Oh yeah.
Most of them are getting minimum wage.
That's nuts.
They're doing it for the experience. They're just doing it to log the hours. So they get hardly paid anything.
No way. If I'm trusting my life in someone, I want them to be paid more than minimum wage.
Most of them don't. Because they're all just learning they're learning the ropes so they can fly the jets.
Yeah, but they're still flying planes.
I know, and the thing is, and those short hop planes are actually more dangerous because they're flying below the weather a lot of the time.
And they're older, and it just,
Yeah, that's aviation for you.
Crazy.
It might be changing now because there's kind of a shortage of pilots. So it might not be the case anymore, but I know 10 years ago, it absolutely was the case. So.
Yeah.
Anyhow. Cool. All right. And I'll hit you up. So for sure, like for voice acting or even just being a guest on the show with the green screen behind you, we can figure something like that out. It'd be really fun.
Sounds great. That'd be great.
Okay. And I'll see you at some con, maybe Seattle.
See you then, hopefully.
All right, Katie. So we always do this on my show. Live long and prosper.
Peace and long life.
Peace, long life, love, peace and harmony. Till next time.
Good weather.
Good weather.
Fantastic creations emerging spontaneously from the space of life.
For the benefit of all beings everywhere.
We gotta